It's the first ever NBA in-season tournament. All 30 teams going for one brand new trophy.
The stakes are the highest.
Only 8 teams advance from the group stages. Then it's down to single elimination.
It's win or go home.
The last 4 standing will battle it out in Las Vegas, baby. They're going to go all in on the hardwood for season-long bragging rights in the first ever NBA Cup. Hope everyone's feeling lucky. The NBA in-season tournament begins November 3rd on ABC, ESPN, and TNT.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report. Wherever you get your podcast, you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And of course, you can always read my work on ESPN.com. And don't forget, on Fridays, my son Matthew puts out Between the Hashes, a good preview of college football on Saturday. Check it out. He also gives his top 10, puts a lot of work into it. Very informed. Today, I am joined by my ESPN counterpart, Mike Reiss, who covers the New England Patriots. Now, I wanted to bring Mike on to talk about the Patriots, but they're 2-6. Is this a huge game in the NFL? No, but I was curious with him. What's Bill Belichick? What's his future in New England? We're not addressing any sort of silly rumors that are out there, but I am curious, like what's Belichick's, what's his status? Where's he at in his coaching career, right? Then we also talk about Christian Gonzalez. Washington had a choice with that pick. They chose Emmanuel Forbes. I know they looked hard at Gonzalez, and if Forbes hadn't been there, I think Gonzalez is here. But Forbes is here, and Gonzalez went there. Now he's out for the year, of course, but what kind of year was he having, and what did the Patriots think of him? So we get into all that, and I wanted to bring you that information because I think it's still pertinent. And and I think for Mike's sake, I mean, Mike has been in the opposite situation that I've been in for many, many years, where he was covering a team that was always winning. He's been to more Super Bowls than I've covered playoff games. That is kind of incredible. We've covered these teams about the same amount of time. So he's now in a situation where it has been difficult. So I was curious to hear about his thoughts, what it's like there. So I think you'll find it very interesting. Mike is one of our best reporters by far, and does a great job covering the Patriots, offers great insight. So stay tuned for that. A couple of things from Thursday's practice and locker room, et cetera. Curtis Samuel was a DNP for a second day in a row because of his foot injury. If he doesn't play, it'll be the first game he's missed since 2021 when he had the whole injury-filled year. Without him, last week, they used a lot of Jamison Crowder, and Crowder certainly looked like he can still play. Like that dude can still get in and out of breaks, in and out of routes. So he's been as good a pickup as they've had this offseason. I mean, seriously, who's better? Who's been better? Who's made more of an impact than Jamison Crowder? So they're lucky to have him. And he seems to have a fairly good rapport with Sam Howell. So good thing for them that he's here. You can use Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson's been in the slot more this year. You can use De'Ami Brown and put Dotson in the slot. You have obviously Terry McLaurin on the other side. The Patriots have done they have not been very good against pass, but I'll get into all that on the preview, on the prediction and key stuff. Anyways, just wanted to give you a quick update on what's going on. Nothing else. The big topic, of course, was the trades this week. Still a topic in the locker room for the media talking to players, but players move on pretty fast. I mean, they really do, because they're used to guys going in and out all the time. So as Kendall Fuller said yesterday, it's a little bit like when a guy gets hurt, guys get hurt all the time. They're here one day, they're not the next. Jeremy Reeves here one day, not the next. It happens to guys all the time. So they're used to that. They're able to move on and, so there you go. Anyway, that's it for me. So stay tuned for my conversation with ESPN Patriots reporter, Mike Reiss. Mike, well, first, I'm used to covering a certain kind of level of football. You have not been. What is it like for you now? I mean, you covered years of success, and now it's been a couple years of struggle, and then this year, I think this is their worst start since 2000, right?
That's right, 2000, Bill Belichick's first year.
So what's it been like?
So I would say the first thing I always say when people ask me that, John, because it's a popular question,
Yeah.
is no one can complain if you've been in my position. When you've been to all those Super Bowls and seen the high level, the PhD of football that I like to say,
Yeah.
like you can't sit here and complain, right? Like that you're the last person that can do that. So start with that. I would say it's been an adjustment, like when you're not used to seeing a product that doesn't look great on consecutive Sundays. And I'm thinking specifically about the Dallas game in week 4
Right.
when Mac Jones, sort of disintegrated with bad turnovers. And the next week at home, a shutout loss to the Saints. So back to back blowouts where the game's over in the third quarter. And then to follow it up with a game at Las Vegas that had the feel in the first half of a preseason game with the way both teams were playing. It just wasn't great to watch. Where I'll be honest with you, John, I'm sitting there in the press box in Las Vegas, beautiful
Yeah.
stadium, always feeling privileged to do what we do, right? You're covering an NFL
Right.
game, but you are saying to yourself, wow, this feels a lot different than what I've been used to. So an adjustment.
It is an adjustment. And it's funny because I think I would have the opposite adjustment. Like, wow, someone asked me, what's it like to cover a good team for a few years in a row? But in fairness, I've only covered them for 30 years, so I shouldn't be too greedy. But it does do it. And how has the organization handled it? How has Belichick handled this situation?
So let's say one thing about Bill Belichick, I would say he's as consistent as they come, so whether they win or lose, I don't notice much difference from him. And I'd say that's been fairly the case, mostly the case this year. As a reporter, John, like when you're dealing with the media relations staff, the locker room, like generally, like I would say here, let me speak for myself. For the Patriots, like the staff has always been very professional and good to work with in the good seasons and even the seasons that haven't been so great. Obviously, this one's even worse than it's been in the
Right.
past. The locker room's been great. I mean, they got a good group of guys. And I think for those listening to this that might be curious what life is like as a reporter, I think the big takeaway would be like you can have a winning team and it not be a great locker room.
Right.
So they got a lot of good guys with the Patriots. So whether they win or lose, and you're asking hard questions when they're losing,
Yeah.
very professional and very receptive to. I'll give you an example real quick. Like their center, David Andrews, in his 9th year. John, win or loss, he's the first guy at the podium after
Hmm.
games, wears his heart in his sleeve, says it like it is. Like as a reporter, what more can you really ask
Right.
for, right? They got a lot of guys like that.
And it's a good point too, because people, because I've been in the similar in a situation for a few years, people ask how it's like. It's like I actually like the football side has been really easy to deal with. And when you have good access, when you have good people to deal with, then win or lose, it makes your job easier and it can be, more enjoyable. Like I know some of our reporters who covered really good teams who did not have a certain level of access, and it was frustrating for them as their teams were going deep in the playoffs. Whereas for me, it's like, they've been very professional, been very good to deal with. So it's not just contingent on winning or losing. I think winning always makes it more, you get more attention, you get all that. But the professionalism of the staff, the players makes a big difference.
And John, like some people have asked me, well, has Belichick softened a little bit, knowing that at 2-6 and, dark clouds ahead and the vultures are circling, if you will, maybe he would take like a softer approach with the local media that's here every day, that's asking him questions. And I would say it's the same, Bill.
Hmm.
Like just actually within the last hour, we had a news conference as we record this, and it was as contentious and I would say, back and forth as we've had all year, so no softening is what I'm trying to tell you from Bill Belichick, which gets back to the whole point of how consistent I think he
Right.
is with his approach, win or lose.
Do you have a sense on his future there?
So, well, do I have a sense? I mean, I guess I would answer it this way, John. He's been here for 24 years, and I think in the owner, Robert Kraft's heart of hearts, he would love to see it continue and have him break Don Shula's all-time wins record as coach of the Patriots. I think that's what the owner really wants. But I think what the owner will ultimately do is measure it out. He has a saying, before I cut, measure it out. Measure 9 times, cut once, I think is the saying. So we got to see how this season plays out.
Right.
John, if it goes off the rails and there's no, I mean, the fans, the way the stadium looks, I mean, they got a season finale against the Jets January 6th or 7th, I believe. If the stadium's half full and the tenor around the team feels like it's reached its end point, like there's a chance. There's a chance that happens, But I do believe in his heart of hearts that he would like to see it work here. And it's just a matter of give it a little more time, see how this season unfolds, and then figure out the best decision for the team.
So last question on Belichick then too, what have been, clearly we know Tom Brady left, and obviously he's the greatest, one, if not the greatest of all time, certainly in the top couple, right? What other decisions or what other factors have contributed to the slide?
So how much time do we have?
I know that's a long.
I'm just joking, John. I was doing that for effect.
Yes.
The personnel's a factor. I mean, obviously the quarterback's a factor, but it was trending in the wrong direction, even in Tom's last year here. I'll never forget this, John. And in retrospect, I sort of questioned myself as a reporter. I'm going into my guide. It was 2019, Tom's last year here, and they were 8-0, and I think he referred to himself as the most miserable 8-0 quarterback, or something like that. Or I remember there was a game at Philadelphia, maybe they were 9-1 at that point. They won 17-10, and he came to the podium after a win, and it felt like a loss. And the reason why was he knew the team wasn't equipped, didn't have the personnel to go where they needed to go. So Tom knew, right, at that point. That's why in retrospect, you play it back. You're like, oh, that's why he was like that. So it's a lot of personnel. You look at their drafts over a stretch of time, and the owner, Robert Kraft, has referenced this. That's why they went on that big free agent spending spree a couple years ago. So start with the personnel, and I think there's other factors. You lose Josh McDaniels, your offensive coordinator. You lose, Matt Patricia, Brian Flores, but that happens to all teams, right? But ultimately, I think that's part of it. So personnel, losing some of your trusted staff. And look, the game's changing too, and maybe there's a discussion to be had as part of that, are the schemes they're running, is that today's NFL? I've had some people around the league I trust, John, tell me, hey, keep an eye on that. Look, he's 71, he's been around, he's very steadfast in what he does, but this game might be changing a little bit. And so just put it all into the pot, and there's probably even more stuff to get to, but those are some of the first that come to mind.
So a couple more topics. Mac Jones, and here they're trying to develop Sam Howell. They want to use this year to see, is he the guy long term? Do they have that answer? Where are the Patriots at with Mac Jones? And before we start talking, point out Mike has a really good story on Mac Jones and the whole situation on ESPN.com. I'll tweet out a link to that before you probably even hear this. But anyways, your take on that.
So this is a hot button topic here in New England.
Quarterbacks always are.
It always are, John, right? And it almost feels like you have to have an opinion. Like, oh, he's still the guy, he still isn't. Let me tell you where I fall on. So I believe, and so you and me are sort of similar age-wise, just to give the context, been covering football, Patriots, NFL since 1997 in various capacities. And over that time, in my experience as a reporter, I would say there's a certain manual or playbook that organizations, successful ones with young quarterbacks, have followed to develop them. All right. And I would say for Mac, the last 3 years, the Patriots have not followed that playbook. Some of it's their own doing, who you're surrounding them with, in terms of receivers, all that stuff. Part of it's factors out of their control. Like if Josh McDaniels was Josh McDaniels offensive coordinator, Mac's first year, when he was a Pro Bowl alternate, and the arrow was pointing up on his career. Josh leaves to become Raiders head coach. Stuff happens.
Right.
But how do you respond? Okay, new coordinator, Matt Patricia, had never done it before.
Right.
Joe Judge, quarterbacks coach, had never coached quarterbacks before in the NFL. So take that now. Now those guys are out this year. Now you got Bill O'Brien coming back. So like it's literally, John, it's been 3 different offenses, 3 different play callers. Like I just think from the manual of how to develop a young quarterback, they have not done him any favors. Now, that being said, Mac can help himself in certain ways, right? And there's certain things I think he would even acknowledge he can do better. So where do I stand? Where do I fall? I go to the bottom line, John. They got to decide in May whether to pick up his 5th-year option for 2025. Like, I think right now, if you look at it, they probably wouldn't, based on what we've seen. That could change by the end of the year. I mean, and if they don't, that doesn't mean he wouldn't be the guy going forward. It just would mean they want more time to assess, right? And so that's where I think we are right now. Do I have it right? I don't know, but that's how I measure it out.
And obviously they have some issues at receiver now, especially with Kendrick Bourne out and just some issues there. So what does Mac do well, and where would you say you're still waiting to see this?
So let me start with you're still waiting to see this part, because that's the fresh stuff, John.
Right.
The turnovers have been a killer because it's not just turning it over. It's when he's doing it and what it's leading to. So give you an example, this last game, they're at Miami and it's 14-7, 2 minutes left in the second quarter. And the Patriots have the ball deep in Miami territory. And he throws an interception. It's like the one thing you can't do because the Dolphins are getting the ball at the start of the second half. So instead of it being 14-10 or even 14-14 at half, it's 17-7 and the Dolphins are getting the ball. So it's just like bad decision, bad throw. Go back to the Cowboys game in week 4. Interceptions turning into like literal pick sixes, fumbles returned for touchdowns. He's not just turning it over, it's turning into points for the other team. Same thing with the Saints the next week. You know, just desperation heave, pick 6, and the whole team sinks as a result of it. So that's what he can do better. Gotta eliminate the turnovers, right? In terms of what he does well, he's so smart. Sometimes you almost wonder if he's too smart. I don't know if that can happen.
I agree with that. I laugh because I know exactly what you're talking about.
So there's that. So I think he can read a defense, process what he sees, and generally get the ball where it needs to go. And it's why I come to this, John. Like, he might not be the guy. He might be the guy. I think he's going to have a long career. I just don't know what the ceiling ultimately will be. But I would like to see him with like the Tua example. Like, they just played Miami, and 2 years into Tua's career, you could have the same discussion we're having right now about Tua. Look what Miami did. They went out, they surrounded him with some elite players, an innovative offensive scheme. Now we're not having that discussion with Tua anymore. I'm not saying Mac equals Tua, but I would like to at least see what it looks like with that type of investment and thought process.
Absolutely. And then 2 more. Christian Gonzalez. We talked after the draft about why Washington passed him up, and you know he's on the list, but they chose Emmanuel Forbes instead. I know Gonzalez is hurt, but I also know he's off to a really good start. What did he add? What was he doing well?
Looked like he was on the way, John, of being a shutdown sort of number 1 corner. So that was tough. That was in the Dallas games, week 4. So he had been named, I think, NFL Rookie of the Month for September. Good ball skills, willingness to tackle, which was a knock on him coming out of Oregon. So I think when you look at the future of the Patriots and the core that they have to build around, he's near the top of the list. So it looks like they got a little fortunate, John, because this wasn't like in the draft, oh, we got Christian Gonzalez. They traded back from 14 to 17, and we're fortunate he was still there. But hey, take your breaks when you can get him, and now, guy to build around.
And then the last thing, just when you look at facing the Commanders, where do you think that what are the Patriots doing well right now that you say they could have problems, that the Washington could have problems with this area? Because we know like Belichick against young quarterbacks, how he's been in the past, but where is it that you feel like they might be able to hurt this team? I mean, and listen, let me say this, they're 3-5, so there's probably a few areas, but I'm just curious, like, where are some areas that the New England's doing really well that they're going to have to contend with?
So John, offensively, it's hard to really hang your hat on anything.
Right.
I will tell you, I think they have two really good backs in Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah.
You know Zeke well from seeing him a couple times a year when he was with the Cowboys. Like, that's been a neat story. Signs a 1-year deal here, and he's got life in his legs still, and he's been a good guy in the locker room. So like that would be one thing offensively, even though we haven't seen it consistently because the offensive line struggles they've had. That would be offensively. I'd say defensively, when they're at their best, and they certainly weren't this last week against Miami, they can do some things scheme-wise to put a lot of stress on an offensive line in terms of, who's coming, who isn't coming. They got a lot of versatile pieces. And so, again, if they put it together, John, and they're at their best, you mentioned Christian Gonzalez. They don't have him. They don't have Matthew Judon, who's been their leading sack guy the last couple of years. But I still believe they have talented players if they put it together. Like, those two are their best. I'm not going to lie to you. So that's a hit. That's like taking out Sweat and Young in a lot of ways, as I sort of look from afar. Like, Commanders losing two of their best, right? When you take them out of the mix, is that fair to say, or am I going?
I think talent wise, it's fair to say. Impact wise, I think there's a feeling, certainly in some parts, of addition by subtraction.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's great insight, and why I would always defer to you.
But they're highly talented and can be productive and can make plays. So it's a really kind of a balanced discussion on that. Like, if we went down that road, like this is what they do well, but this is why, especially in Young's case, why they were willing to part with a third for him.
There you go. And so to wrap it up, I would just say offensively, Stevenson and Elliott are two of the best things they have going. But the offensive line has been a major issue, so they haven't got going really, right? But I believe the potential is there, and the ability to sort of spin the dial defensively with their versatile pieces if they put it together, which hasn't always been the case.
Right. Mike, you're the best. I appreciate you joining me, and I'll see you on Sunday. Looking forward to it. Have a great trip up here. Always great connecting with you. First time you're coming since 2015, John. How about that? I looked at that this morning. I know. And I will say, we're already talking about the clam chowder. There you go. There you go. You're going to have it warmed up for you. That's right. That's right. Thanks, man. That's it for this episode. Thanks to Mike for joining me. And thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back Friday night / Saturday morning with my prediction and the keys to the game for Sunday's game between the Commanders and the Patriots. I'll talk to you next time.